Welcome to Unleash Your Inner Goldilocks, How to Get It Just Right. Thank you so much for joining us for another important and insightful conversation. As we think of Goldilocks and as we look at today's conversation, I want you to have in your mind this young girl, Goldilocks, who's trying to get things just right. She wants to make sure her porridge is not too hot or not too cold. She doesn't want the bed she lays down in to be not too hard or not too soft. She, at her young age, knows how to get it just right and how to expect it to be just right. And that is what our guest today does with young people. She is an experienced coach working with children in the K through 12 arena and who's teaching them emotional intelligence and life skills and mental health coping capabilities so that our children get it just right, just like Goldilocks. Trish, welcome. Welcome to Unleash Your Inner Goldilocks. So happy to have you here.
I'm really happy to be here. And actually, I work with children as well, but I also work with parents. I coach parents. And the reason for that is because I feel like we as parents, we have a lot of things that are going on, how we were raised, how, patterns that we developed along the way, and a lot of things that we don't know what we don't know, right? I mean, because on my journey, I had been teaching for 6.5 years or something by the time we had our first child. And I thought, I'm going to be great at this. This is my wheelhouse. Kids are my thing, right? And then we had our own kids and they had challenges. They had attention challenges and auditory processing. And I mean, just various things that and they were both gifted, which sounds like a brag, but it's not that. I mean, gifted kids have all kinds of needs that, I didn't necessarily know how to meet on a level of being a mom at home versus at school. So I felt like I was doing great with everybody else's kids and failing my own kids. And I think a lot of times as parents, we do feel like we're failing our own kids. So I was on this journey to figure out how to get their needs met, how to help them grow into independent, healthy, successful humans in this crazy world of ours, right? I mean,
Absolutely.
there are just so many, and especially with the explosion of technology and all the life changes, everything that's happened, it's just been an interesting road. And it was actually my kids who were just like, Mom, I really think you need to coach other parents, because I have all these friends that are, when they were young adults, I have all these friends that are trying to do this adulting thing, and they don't have any tools. Like, they're asking me all the time what to do and how to do it, and it was just stuff you raised us with. But it didn't start that way. It started with a lot of friction and me feeling like, they're not doing well in school, they're having accidents at school, they're I mean, just all kinds of things that were going on because they were different and the teachers didn't know how to get their needs met. And they were different, and even I didn't know how to get their needs met. So I, talked to all these professionals, I read all these studies, and just a whole lot of trial and error to figure it out. And one of the things I wanted to mention today, because I've been listening to your podcast. They're lovely, by the way. Thank you for doing what you do, honestly. And I was listening to one of the podcasts where the speaker was talking about fear versus love, and we can choose fear or love. And I think a lot of times we choose fear without realizing it. And one of the things that I think is really helpful for us to teach our kids as well as ourselves is the do-over. Like, we'll say something that we didn't mean, or we'll do something that wasn't, the best in the best interest, and we realize it after we've done it, because, isn't that life, right? We realize that we've made a mistake, and if we can make it safe for each other, give each other grace, I think we have a hard time, especially in this society. I think we have such a hard time giving people grace when we make mistakes. And if we allow them to, or if we say we're sorry ourselves, and we ask for a do-over. And I think that's a really important thing to do, to give people a chance to do things over.
Absolutely. So, as you're talking, one of the things I do want to mention to the audience is you and I met through Equip Our Kids. I am
Yes.
the chair of the board, and you're part of the Speaker Bureau. So, as you're listening to Trish talk, if you, your school, your community needs Trish to come and train parents, coach parents, get involved in your community, feel free to contact her directly or contact us at Equip Our Kids. And we make sure that the community, the school, the parents get the resources. And so happy to share the fact that we are going to be launching a streaming service, and Trisha's wisdom and coaching and insights are going to be part of that. And we are extremely excited to bring all of these tools to parents because, as you were saying, Trish, we are living in a very polarized time and nobody is listening to one another, and kids are caught in the middle. And for us to be able to change this trajectory and give children a more meaningful life as youth, as they transition into adulthood, parents need to be grounded. Parents need to find that balance. And how are you helping parents find that balance in spite of us living in a polarized world? How do we get parents to get somewhere in the middle so that they can see perspectives? Because if they don't see perspectives, they're going to shut their kids down.
So here's the interesting thing. We're working on social and emotional learning with children at school, and social and emotional learning in a lot of arenas has gotten a bad rap because they've made it all about the gender thing and who's he, she, or they, or whatever. And all that part of social and emotional learning is about acceptance, accepting other people for who they are. And we've just made it so much more complicated. And basically, what we really need to focus on is the part of it, kids recognizing their own emotions and being able to deal with them helps them to become more empathetic. So that's what the idea is. But I work with parents on that because, you know what, I find that parents have a hard time giving themselves grace. And when we have a hard time giving ourselves grace, then we have a hard time giving our kids grace. I also find that because we're so harried in our society, what happens is we stop listening to each other, and it's not intentional. But if we do certain things with our kids and listen, like when a kid comes in from outside, or they come in from school, or they get into your car after school and you're bringing them home, instead of saying, hi, how was your day, and they go fine, and go off to something else, right, and they don't really communicate. Whereas if they come in and you say, hi, great to see you, you look thoughtful, or whatever they look like on their face, and then you're just quiet, they'll start talking. And that's how we find out what's going on with our kids in our lives. And you know who else this works great with? Our partners.
Yes.
And the
Absolutely.
thing, I mean, and I had to learn that the hard way. The other thing in social and emotional learning that we do with parents is we talk about gratitude and expressing our gratitude, like for our partner, things that we think that it's part of their role in the family or whatever for them to do anyway. Do you know, after my husband and I just celebrated 38 years of marriage, and he still thanks me for doing the laundry because he knows I don't love it. And sometimes he helps with it and, whatever. But most of the time, I'm the one who does the laundry. And I like it that way because I kind of have a system. And when he helps it, I love that he helps, and it, shifts my system a little bit. Right. So, but the point is that we do just everyday things, and that we would do anyway. And we make it a point to thank the other person for doing it. And just that little thing in your relationship makes a huge difference. And it's the same thing with our kids. that we thank them for specific things. Or when we give them compliments, we give them compliments on specific things. We don't say, wow, what a beautiful picture. Because, a lot of times it's just scribbles, right? or maybe it's beautiful to us because we're their parents, right? But if we just say to them, wow, I really like this part right here, whatever it is. You want to tell me about that? And they'll tell you a whole story about their picture that you had no idea was going on in there. Because what we're doing is we're teaching people to communicate and we're teaching people to listen. And when they communicate, when they're talking to us and we're talking to them, and we're in a space of listening and taking turns and not thinking about what we're going to say next, to really be present and create space. Wow, what a difference it made. I mean, I was working with a family for a while who had 10 children. And when we first started working together, they were all talking at once. And if I'm louder, then they'll be able to hear me, and that kind of thing. And then I gave them a ball to hold, and we passed it around. They could only talk if they were holding the ball. And that was a really difficult adjustment for them at first, but they actually started listening to each other. And it was amazing how they just started getting along better because they knew what was going on. And then they started doing things like allowing each other to say, I'm sorry. And especially if they said, oh, I shouldn't have said it like that. Can I have a do-over? And when they would ask for a do-over, the other family members started going, yeah, thanks for apologizing. And, we had to go through a process of creating that, but just creating space for people to make mistakes and apologize and learn from them and ask for a do-over just created a complete shift in their families.
And that is precious as you are talking about this, and parents having a harder time than children. What I recall is Brene Brown talking about
Yes.
how when shame and fear ride side by side, right? When we are always afraid of what other people are going to think, and we are controlling every situation with our family, with our children as parents, then it's rooted in the shame of what we are bringing in, and we are putting it on our children. They are not aware of all of this.
And neither are we.
Mhm.
I mean, how many adults would know, oh, I just said that to my child because deep down, I'm really ashamed about this thing that happened when I was 9. I mean, we're not conscious of that either. So part of what I do with parents is I help parents become conscious about some of these things and just make small shifts in their communication and small shifts in their routines. And they're not like big things to have to do. A lot of times people will say, I don't have time. And I'll just be like, how do you not have time to learn how to communicate better with your kids? Because the bottom line is, it doesn't take any more time. It just takes a little practice, and it can happen in baby steps. And if you're vulnerable and honest with your kids, like, oh boy, I just blew that. I need to do it over. Guess what? They're going to do the same thing because we're all going to make mistakes. That's part of the human condition. But if we can make it safe, create space for each other and make it safe, give each other grace so we can learn from our mistakes instead of developing that shame, that's what makes a difference.
Absolutely. And allowing that allows the children to grow up to be who they are meant to be. And it also allows them to learn, because people who don't make mistakes never learn. I mean, the only people who don't make mistakes are people who don't do anything. They're too terrified to fail, so
So
they don't
true.
do anything. And they're living in a constant state of paralysis. And who wants to raise children like that? They're never going to be functional in society.
Well, but I feel like a lot of times we paved that road to hell with our good intentions, right? Because we do a lot of things for our children. We don't allow them to develop the independence that they need. I mean, our job as parents is to work ourselves out of a job. But when we're raising our kids in this society, it gives us purpose. And a lot of people have a really hard time letting go of that purpose. So when their kids grow up and get married, they have a really hard time letting that go and allowing their children to have that relationship. And it's really important for us to allow our kids, because when I mean, because we had a tumultuous beginning with our kids. I mean, that's what sent me on the road. We had this, or I had this just nightmarish experience with our 7-year-old at the time. I mean, now she's grown up, but at the time she was 7. And she was just really talking back to me, being disrespectful. I warned her, you better stop. Anyway, we ended up getting in a wrestle. She jumped onto the floor, happened to be on my foot, landed on her back. She ended up with a bruise on her back. And I thought that was I mean, I lost it. That was my immature behavior. So it was just like to me, it was just as bad as if I'd majorly hit her and bruised her, right? And even though that's not what happened, it was horrible. And I thought, I've got to figure out how to raise these kids who have attention issues. And the older one had a really short fuse, and partly because she was really bright and frustrated and people didn't listen to her. She felt like people didn't listen to her. And it was just this escalating mess of what was going on and that was being created when she was little. And I thought, she's 7. I've got to figure this out, because if I don't figure this out, she's going to have a hard time her whole life. And she's actually the one that said, Mom, you have to help other parents. Because she knew, we all knew that this pattern of behavior was being created, and we had to do an about face and do something else. And it's amazing what happens when we just, like Brene Brown says, if there isn't any intervention, if we aren't intentional, if we don't shift our perspective at all, that's how it ends up, because we have shame. Every time we think of a justification for something we've done, it's attack and blaming it on the other person, even subtly. It's not only an attack on them, it's an attack on ourselves, because it means that we're not growing from the situation. We're not learning what our part in it was. So there's no way for us to recreate it. Whereas if we start looking at listening to each other and figuring it out as we go along, then we have this whole pattern of being able to communicate and resolve things that come up. Like right now, I'm doing a series for parents, a social and emotional learning series for parents, because it's different than it would be for school, because you get to be one-on-one with your child a whole lot more, right? And the next couple of them are going to be on how to manage stress. And the following one after that is how to problem solve with your children and how to help them problem solve. Because when we do that with our kids at home, it's so rewarding and so much fun to watch them do it with their friends. Just like you're eavesdropping in the next room, and they could be on the phone, they could be a whole group in your house, and they're playing, and they realize that there's some kind of problem. So they just say, okay, let's drop everything. This isn't going to work, because, this is, from what I see, this is what's going on with you. Is that right? And they let the other kid talk. Okay, well, this is what's going on with me. And so between what's going on with you and what's going on with me, this isn't working. So how do we fix this? How do we work this out? And when you watch your kids do that for the first time, it's just like the first time I saw my older daughter do that, it just made me teary. I was just like, and now she's a very successful software engineer who troubleshoots. And when there's a big problem, she's the one who calms down the team and makes it work, and she can unravel what's going on. And had we not had these just really difficult times when she was little that sent me on this journey, I never would have been able to teach her that. And I probably wouldn't even know it myself.
And you make a great point. We learn through our challenges.
Yes,
And you talk about
absolutely.
this in your book, Brain Stages. Do you want to take a moment and share with our audience what the book is about and what that journey was like?
Oh, I couldn't possibly. No, of course. Well, this is pretty beat up because I do a lot of master classes and stuff online. And so it has all these, post-its and everything, but it's called Brain Stages: How to Raise Smart, Confident Kids and Have Fun Doing It by, well, Patricia Wilkinson, me, but also Jacqueline Frischnecht, PhD. She and I were writing it together and she passed away before it was finished. So this is also my legacy to her. It's a kindergarten through fifth grade, grade by grade guide through elementary school. So it's not like you have to read all these pages. It even has an index where you can look stuff up. It's here's it. There's introduction chapters that say this is kind of how brains develop, function, and learn. And here's some best practices that you can do to help kids have healthy brain function and brain development, right? And then each chapter is like, okay, this is kind of where your kid's brain development is in kindergarten. I mean, all kids are different, but this is kind of generally where it is when they're in kindergarten. They're between 4 and 6 years old, depending on where they go to school. And so this is where their brain development is. This is kind of where they are socially. These are some of the tendencies. These are some of the kind of cool things for them to learn when they're at this age. Here's what they're supposed to learn academically. And here are a whole bunch of fun games to play to make sure they get all those needs met. And it's like that kindergarten all the way through fifth grade. Okay, so fourth grade, they're talking about, oh, kids get older earlier and it's hormones, and it's not necessarily hormones, it's brain development. In fourth grade, for example, boys and girls brain development shifts and they're not growing at the same rate. The girls prefrontal cortex is growing faster than boys in fourth grade. So all of a sudden, when they've been good friends and doing things fine and whatever, the boys feel blindsided because the girls are different, and the girls feel blindsided because the boys are different, because their brains are literally in different places in development. I mean, so the book talks about, and it's all in, where if you look up online what kids are supposed to learn in each grade, you kind of have to look up the jargon as well because it's all very technical. So the book has everything that they're supposed to learn academically and in really friendly language that everybody can understand. And then the games, if you play some of the games in the book, and you pick and choose because they're learning things in school too. But any kind of gaps that they have, you can fill in those gaps so that they're not, because when kids miss what they're learning in school, a lot of times the schools are not filling in those gaps. So, and it's learning is a spiral kind of thing that happens. So what the book does is it, in fun ways, make sure that kids don't have any gaps in their learning.
Beautiful. That is very, very encouraging. And I know that people are going to go and get this book on Amazon. I am going to open this up for questions. We have live audience here. I want to have at least 1 or 2 questions in the next.
I would love that. I love questions.
Yes. So I will open this up. Robin or Nandini, Dr. Nandini, any questions, any thoughts you have to share?
Hi.
Hi.
And hi,
Trish.
Trish. Yeah. Thank you so much. This was, I've been working and thinking a lot about emotional intelligence and effective communication, and a lot of the times, I've been feeling like I wish, we as physicians and healthcare workers had learned this earlier in our lives. And so it's been great to go on through Dr. Henry's podcast and stuff, and hear all these people working with children, because I'm hoping that when these people decide they want to become physicians and nurses and healthcare workers, they'll have a lot better ways of coping than this generation with burnout and our emotions, and communicating and creating a better, less toxic environment for patients and healthcare personnel. So
well, I really feel that there is a movement for that now.
Yes.
I just did a summit that's coming out in a couple weeks. I just did a summit on oh, what did she call it? All of a sudden I blanked out, but it's like self-care parenting, self-compassionate parenting. And
Yes.
and but we need to have whether we're parents or not, we need to have self-compassion for ourselves, right? If our children are grown, we still need to have, I mean, it's that whole thing back to grace and communication and allowing people do-overs when they need them, allowing
Yeah.
people to learn from their mistakes because we all make them.
Yeah.
And when we're hard on other people for making mistakes, that just makes it harder on ourselves as well. Whereas if we can learn to create space for people when they make mistakes, to forgive easily, and forgiving does never, I feel like a lot of my clients, when I work with them, they feel like forgiveness means condoning what they did or making it okay. And all forgiveness means is just letting it go. So we do this kind of mindfulness thing where we hold our fist and we're thinking, closing our eyes and breathing. And I literally physically have them slowly open their fist and picture whatever they're holding on to just floating away, so that they get this kind of almost physical, visceral feeling of letting go whatever is holding them back, or letting go of whatever their challenges, resentments, gripes are. Whether it's with their kids or their coworkers or their partners, because in raising our kids, if we're holding on to stuff like that, it comes out on our communication, right? And so I feel like there's a whole movement towards self-care right now, which is kind of what Equip Your Kids is about. It's a whole movement towards training children how to recognize what's going on with their emotions, how to create empathy, how to learn from their mistakes, how to understand what's going on so that they can deal with other people with kindness. And kindness starts with ourselves. We have to be kind with ourselves, or how do we be kind with other people, right?
Absolutely, because we can't, if our cup is empty, we can't give water to somebody else, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Perfectly said. Robin, thank you, Nandini, for that
No.
question.
Awesome conversation, and so great to see you, Nandini. How fun. Okay, so my quick question is, how do you get, or what have been some of the obstacles in helping parents realize that they are part of the problem? In fact, sometimes they are most of the problem, as opposed to kids. It's very easy to say, the kids made me do it, or, blame the kids. And how do you get parents to be able to see they are part of the problem without then moving into defensiveness and justification and all of that?
I'm so glad you asked me that, Robin. because
Speaking from
because
experience.
yeah, no, for sure. And the other, I mean, I find like that teachers will also blame kids and blame their parents, and we don't have any control over anybody but ourselves, right? So what I tell the parents is, in order to shift your children's behavior, we're going to work on shifting some of your perspectives and give you some tools so that because right now there's a lot of this going on and you're not hearing each other, or there's no communication at all and you're all on your phones. I'm sure that everybody has seen people sitting at a restaurant and everybody's on their phones at the same time looking down, nobody's talking, right? And you're just thinking, okay, family time. So, but not in a judgmental way, because we all do these things without even realizing we're doing it, without even being conscious. So, Robin, basically what I do is I say, we're going to talk about perspectives, and I ask them to talk to me and tell me what they think is going on. And then I say, what if we could look at it this way? What if we could talk to your children in a different way and listen to your children in a different way and create a whole new atmosphere where you felt at peace? How would you feel about that? So what I do is I get them to picture what we can create ahead of time. So like my husband used to say to the kids all the time when they would be, she did this and he did that and blah, 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 blah. And my husband would say, whoa, 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 let's fix the problem, not the blame. And that's what I do with parents. I say, it's not about blame. We're not putting the finger on, any of this. What we're doing is we're giving you tools to empower you, because you're the powerful person here. So we're going to empower you to recreate this whole dynamic in your family. You get to be the rock star.
That's
That
awesome.
that is so beautifully said. And thank you, Robin, for the amazing question as always. This has been a wonderful conversation, and half an hour has flown by.
Wow,
And
already.
Trish,
I didn't look at the time.
you and I are going to be doing a lot of work together with Equip Our Kids, our streaming service, and so many other things that are going to come down the pike. So take a quick minute and share with our audience how they can reach you and get a hold of you. And I will make sure we also post it as part of the release on YouTube.
Basically, it's really easy. Just go to thebrainstages.com. It's all one. Oh, I didn't get to say goodbye to her. Goodbye. Go to thebrainstages.com. And there's all kinds of free stuff on there. One of my favorite free things is in the header. There's a red field that says get this free problem solving thing for a limited time, but I keep extending the date because people are really appreciating the problem solving, the family problem solving, because then it gives the whole family a part in how they recreate their communication, recreate any kind of issues that come up in the family, whatever's disturbing the family peace, right? But there's all kinds of free stuff on there. And then and above the fold, you can click on my scheduling link. And my scheduling link, you can book a free consultation with me, and for 30 minutes we can do a lot of stuff. Whether we work together or not, we can do a lot of stuff. If you have an issue going on in your family, please don't just suffer in silence. Please ask someone. I didn't have people to ask. We tried family therapy because, I had these 2 kids with attention issues. Notice I did not say attention deficit, hyperactivity disorder. They're not deficient, nor are they disordered. They're very successful adults now. Their brains just work differently. I actually specialize a lot with parents who have kids who have attention issues because they have a hard time fitting in and social, you get all that stuff. But if we can, it's like anything else, shifting your perspective. So to get a hold of me, just click on the consultation. You get a free consultation, and we can usually get quite a bit done in 30 minutes and really make some very valuable shifts in your family in a very short time. So don't suffer in silence. But just go to the website, thebrainstages.com. Tons of free stuff on there, tons of support.
Thank you so much, Trish. It's been such a valuable 30 minutes to have this conversation. And I know our audience have gotten a lot out of this. And as we bring this to a close, I just want to reiterate Trish's message. Find a way, get the help to change your perspective. And in that process, you are going to be able to live a life that embodies kindness and compassion and grace, first for yourself and those around you. And in this process, you are going to be able to get life just right, get your relationships just right, and be able to raise kids who are going to be perfectly right for the world we are living in.